A single pit stop lasts just 4 to 6 seconds, and yet the decision to make that stop can be calculated across millions of computer simulations. So today, we're asking a question that separates champions from the rest. When exactly should your car leave the track and dive into the pits? Because timing a pit stop by even a tenth of a lap can mean the difference between victory lane and a podium nobody remembers. In modern Formula One, a pit stop is no longer just a service break. It's a weaponized, tactical moment that can either launch you to victory or strand you in traffic forever. The difference between a good call and a bad one plays out in tenths of seconds, but it's measured in championship points across a season. Teams like Mercedes and Red Bull employ entire departments of strategists, engineers, and simulation specialists whose entire job is to predict the future on track. They're calculating tire degradation curves, fuel burn rates, and the relative performance of every competitor simultaneously, all while the race is unfolding live at speeds over 300 kilometers per hour. Miss your window by one lap, and suddenly you're fighting through a sea of cars you could have easily jumped before your stop. Get it right, and you send your driver out into clean air with fresh tires. An advantage that can feel like cheating when executed at the perfect moment. So how do they actually do it? How do strategists sitting in a control room decide in real time that this lap, not the next one, not 2 laps from now, this is the moment to call their driver in? The answer starts with understanding what happens to a tire the moment it hits the track. A fresh set of Pirelli compounds, let's say the medium, a yellowish rubber, comes into the race with tremendous grip and mechanical advantage. The tire is cold, dense, almost stiff. Within the first lap or two of running, friction heats that rubber up. Temperature climbs toward its optimal operating window, around 80 to 100 degrees Celsius for modern F1 tires. In that sweet spot, the tire is working at peak efficiency, maximum grip, minimum wear. But then, something critical happens. Lap after lap, the driver is demanding more and more from that same piece of rubber. The tire is being worn down microscopically with every corner, every braking zone, every acceleration out of a turn. The strategists are watching this degradation curve like hawks. They have historical data from testing, from practice sessions earlier in the weekend, even from the same circuit in previous years. They know roughly how long that tire will last before it loses significant grip. But here's where it gets visceral. Imagine you're a driver with 5 laps left on a set of mediums. The rear tires are starting to lose their edge. You can feel it in the steering feedback. Less bite in the corners, more sliding on exit. Your lap times begin to creep up by 1/10, then 2/10 per lap. At that exact moment, your pit wall is deciding, do we bring you in now and put on a fresh set of hards? Or do we risk it, push for one more lap of reasonable pace and gain the strategic advantage of newer rubber for the final stint? The calculation is brutal and multi-layered. They're factoring in the current race position of every competitor, where they are in their own tire cycles, and whether they'll pit before or after your driver. They're calculating fuel consumption, simulating lap times on fresh rubber versus worn rubber, and predicting where your car will end up in the running order after the pit stop. One lap too early, and you've wasted the potential of your tires. You could have extracted another lap of real performance. One lap too late, and suddenly your driver is battling a car with fresher compound, fighting for every 10th, while you watch your position evaporate in the mirrors. The margin between a masterclass and a missed opportunity is literally the thickness of a human hair, repeated across the entire tire surface. That's what modern pit stop strategy really is. Predicting the invisible moment when rubber meets its limit. And the teams that get it wrong, they learn it immediately. Because there's nowhere to hide on a racetrack, the data tells the story in real time. Let's look at how this actually unfolds in real racing, because history is littered with pit stop decisions that changed entire championships. Go back to 2016, Abu Dhabi, the final race of the season. Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton are locked in a battle for the title, separated by just 1 point. Hamilton is leading, but his tyres are fading. The pit wall knows that if they bring him in too early, they lose track position. If they wait too long, fresh tyres on the car behind become a genuine threat. Rosberg's team makes their move first, pulling him in for fresh rubber with just a handful of laps remaining. Hamilton's engineers face that same brutal choice we just described. They calculate the delta, how much time Rosberg will gain on fresh tyres versus how much Hamilton can defend on his worn set. They decide to extend the stint. It's a calculated gamble that doesn't pay off. Rosberg emerges with fresher tyres in the closing laps, attacks, and ultimately wins the race and the championship by a single point. One pit stop decision made across maybe 30 seconds of radio calls decides who becomes world champion. Now jump forward to 2021, Brazil, a wet and chaotic afternoon. Max Verstappen is defending his championship lead against Lewis Hamilton, and the safety car is deployed late in the race. Everyone pits for fresh tyres, but the question becomes soft compound or intermediate. Which calls the weather right? Verstappen's team commits to softs. Hamilton's team chooses intermediate. On the restart, Verstappen has grip. Hamilton has caution. The last 3 laps belong to Max. Again, a tyre strategy call in a moment of uncertainty decides the outcome. These aren't flukes. They're the fingerprint of modern Formula One. The teams that master the invisible calculation, reading tyre degradation, predicting competitor behavior, understanding the weather, and knowing precisely when that rubber hits its wall. They're the ones holding trophies at the end of the season, because at the highest level, talent and machinery are nearly equal. The margin lives in these decisions made in real time by strategists who've run 10,000 simulations but know that no simulation ever quite captures the chaos of a real race. But here's the thing that keeps strategists awake at night. What if you get it wrong? Imagine a scenario where a team has perfect information. They know exactly how many laps their tyres will last. They know their competitor's pace to the 10th of a second. The weather forecast is spot on, and they still make the wrong call. It happens more often than you'd think, because racing doesn't exist in a vacuum of pure mathematics. A driver makes a small mistake. A rival driver pushes harder than expected. The wind direction shifts. A rival team does something unconventional, something that doesn't fit the model. That's when a strategist faces their real test. When the simulation breaks down, and instinct, experience, and raw courage take over. Do you extend the stint hoping degradation stops? Do you pit early as insurance? Do you follow your rival or do the opposite? Some of the greatest strategic victories in Formula One history came not from executing the perfect plan, but from reading the moment, trusting the numbers enough to go against them, and making the leap. It's the margin where champions are separated from the rest. So remember this. Pit stop strategy isn't just about fresh rubber and fuel weight. It's about reading an ever-changing race, trusting your data, and knowing when to break your own rules. And it's about understanding that the margin between victory and defeat often comes down to one strategist in a darkened room making a call when everything on the screen says wait, but their experience whispers go. Which aspect of race strategy fascinates you most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see us explore how engineers read tire temperatures or how teams predict weather changes, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because the real race happens before the lights go out.